While the series has been absent for 6 years, Portland International Raceway was often host to some classic Trans Am battles. In 1990, Trans Am whiz kid Darren Brassfield took the win. 91 saw the war intensify, and the wily speed of Irv Hare brought him home first. Sweetness switched helmets in 92, while veteran Paul Gentilozzi came from 19th to score. The battle went to mano a mano in 93 between the Camaro of pole sitter Scott Sharp and Ron Fellows' Mustang, with Fellows using the old chrome horn on his way to victory. Fellows notched win number 2 from the pole in 94, and he got his 3rd straight in the rain of 1995. Now, 6 years later, the look may be different, but little else. The fury and the fire remain as heated as ever, the pressure equally intense. The Warriors of Trans Am return to Portland International Raceway next, live on Speed Vision. For the first time since 1995, the Trans Am Series for the BF Goodrich Tires Cup returns to Portland International Raceway for the 7th round of the championship chase. Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Creamer, and welcome to the Tommy Bahama 125. Now, at 125 miles, this 7th round is also one of 3 scheduled pit stop races that we're going to see unfold during the season. The first coming at Moseport a few races back. That's a nice development. An even better one, Tommy Kendall returning to Trans Am. Let's quickly take a look at some highlights from TK's early Trans Am career. 1996 poles and 6 wins on the way to his first of a record 4 championships. Then in 95, he got another championship. 96, another one still. And in 97, setting the all-time record, 11 consecutive wins, obliterating Mark Donahue's record of 8 on his way to his 4th record-setting championship at this point. Indeed, great news to have Tommy Kendall back in Trans Am, joining me here in the booth this weekend. TK, welcome back to Trans Am.
Well, that is a cruel opening.
It was.
Probably gave my mother a heart attack, for God's sakes. But I'm really excited to be here. I get excited watching a dog show, for God's sake. With everything going on in Trans Am, I am just really pumped. A lot of changes since I was here. The cars are quite a bit different looking with the bodies and the wings and so forth. But the thing that gets me, how about that cash? Paul Gentilozzi has made almost $50,000 on a number of his wins.
Well, those young pups, obviously, you were just born too early.
Well, you know, you hear Arnold Palmer say it about Tiger Woods, Will Chamberlain, Michael Jordan. I was clearly born in the wrong era. Back in my day, you'd have to win all the races to make that kind of dough.
And, of course, Paul Gentilozzi winning a lot of the races as of late. You were talking about that. Let's take a look at the driver's points. Gentilozzi, bit of a slow start, but then he reeled off 3 straight leading into Sears Point. He didn't get the win, but he was very competitive. Brian Simo winning at Sears Point popped him up in the second, 14 points behind Gentilozzi. Johnny Miller, always consistently quick, is 3rd. Lou Gelati, that win at Long Beach and some great runs up to 4th. Michael Lewis, 5th in the points. We'll take a look now at 6th through 10th, and you can see Tommy Archer sits there tied for 5th in the points. Then Bell, Boris said he won at Sebring, just got the best finish ever for the Panos Esperani in the most recent race at Sears Point, Dreese and Bob Ruman. Now, we mentioned Tommy Archer. We have a couple of pit reporters here this weekend. Calvin Fish is joining us, as well as Chris Neville. And Calvin, obviously, Tommy Archer back this weekend, but he missed Sears Point due to a testing injury, but he is back and in a big way.
Well, he's back in a big way, all right, Greg, but he has 4 cracked ribs that he suffered in that accident. And they say when an animal is wounded, he's sometimes at his meanest. And Tommy Archer yesterday put together a very mean but very smooth qualifying run to claim his first pole position of the year in this Sinjo Racing Viper. But Tommy, 1 lap in qualifying is a hurdle for you. How about 65 laps, 125 miles? Is the body up to the task this afternoon?
Well, we're going to find out in a little bit. You know, the car's working really well. Sinjo Racing's put together a good team, and I'm really hoping that everything's going to work out good for the whole race. And I'd like to say hi to Jacqueline, Andrew, and Pamela, who didn't get to make it to the race.
Well, Tommy has finished 2nd here in Trans Am competition 2 years, in 1992 and 1993. He's looking to go 1 better this afternoon, but a man who has had success here at Portland is standing by with our Chris Neville.
Paul Gentilozzi is once again having a very dominant season in Trans Am. We're 6 races in. He has won 3 of them and had 4 poles in that time. Paul, this weekend has been a little bit different. You're starting 2nd, and you haven't been at top of the practice charts. Are there some problems?
Well, no, there's always somebody with a paddle big enough to spank your ego, and this week Tommy brought it with him. Going to be a long race. Lots of stuff's going to happen, Chris. I'm worried about a championship, not one day.
Good luck out there, Paul. A little bit further back on the grid is Calvin Fish with Boris said.
Well, the Panos Esperanza is really starting to come on strong, Chris. In fact, it finished third at Sears Point with the fastest race lap. And here today at Portland, its highest qualifying position of the year. Boris said, is this car ready to win?
It's getting a lot closer, Calvin. I mean, these guys have been working really hard from Applied Computer Solutions and everyone down at Elan Motorsports. And if not this weekend, maybe the next weekend.
Okay, well, Boris thinks he's got a great car underneath him this afternoon. And starting alongside Boris on the second row is champion Brian Simo. He coming off a strong run at Sears Point where he had his first win of the season.
It's going to be fun to watch those two guys from the second row. And was it just me, or was Tommy Archer dancing around if he's going to last physically for this entire race? You know, when you think about Portland, though, you always think, especially since the early 90s when they instituted the series of chicanes really called the festival curves, a very tight right-left, parks the cars. Tommy, there's always issues with contact there, you know, especially opening laps or restarts. But sometimes there's just issues with improving your position. You ran into that in 1995.
Kind of a weird situation. The measure has always been, does the car who goes straight improve his position? Here, Dorsey gets it all crossed up, isn't going to make the corner, goes straight through. I go through behind. He rejoins the course. He's quite a bit ahead of me. You'll see he did slow down right up to my bumper. But my argument, which I made over the next 15 laps on the radio, was had he had to go straight, would I have gotten by? My argument was yes, but it fell on deaf ears, and they left it as is.
And as you mentioned, 15 laps of arguing and pleading. They never saw it your way. So a little later in the race, did you step off the subway and dish out a little vigilante justice?
Well, I'm not going to say. I'm not smart enough to do something like that. But what I did do, I said, hey, if Dorsey can go to that brake mark that he did, I'm going to try it on the last lap. I get down way down inside. He's coming inside. I bomb over the curb, end up right in his door, spin him out. Not a real pretty maneuver, obviously. When viewed on whole, my case was that I should have been in front of him already anyways. The real issue is, in the race, if it stays that way, it's in your interest to bomb the chicane every time you're under pressure.
But perhaps not anymore. Now, Chris Neville, we understand that issue's been on the boil for some 6 years, and they may have come up with a solution to it this weekend.
Yeah, SCCA is saying there will be no bombing of the chicane this weekend. They have an official standing down there, and if you do miss your turn in and try and go straight, you will be stopped and assessed a 10-second stop-and-go penalty. So many of the drivers are saying they've got to make their turn in. But on this first lap, a lot of guys are saying if it looks like they're going to get in a wreck, they would rather take that penalty than put the car in the box.
And, of course, one of the things you'll wonder about is if somebody is forced down that chicane, will they abrogate a little bit of that penalty, or will that entire 10-second stick? We'll see how that unfolds. When we come back, we'll bring you the starting lineup, and then we'll have the start of the 7th round of the Trans Am Series for 2001. Don't go anywhere.
Speed Vision's coverage of the Trans Am Series for the BF Goodrich Cup is presented by BF Goodrich Tires. Take control. And brought to you by AmeriSuites, America's affordable all-suite hotel. Don't downsize, Amerisize.
Welcome back to Portland International Raceway, and before we get to the starting lineup, we want to take a fairly in-depth look at this track since it's been 6 years since we've been here. We've already talked a little bit about the festival curves, Tommy, but take us around Portland International Raceway.
Yeah, first up, obviously, is the festival. I always got a kick out of that name. It insinuates there's a party. With what goes on there, it's more like a fraternity party with some mauling and heavy petting, or maybe more like a mosh pit. It is absolute chaos. When you get through there, the little wiggle on the way out, as the tires get worn, the cars will use up all that road, and then they head into the triple right-hander 1A, 2, hard on the left front tire, into 3, one of the few left-handers, a long increasing radius, very hard on the rear tires as well. Turn 5, it drops down going in there, picks up a little camber, very tough to hook up the rear wheels there. 5A, a little bit of a wiggle. 6, a non-turn. 7, 8, and 9. 7, very, very high speed. You'll see the fast guys climb way up on that curb to carry some speed through 7, and then carry it through 8, and then you got to get the car slowed down onto 9. Really important to put the power down there onto the long straightaway, and to monitor as tire wear goes along.
Fairly flat track, but of course one that offers up a lot of features in that 7 and 8 complex is so fast in there, and we've got a camera that's going to be bringing you some of those shots. Can't wait to show that to you here. We're just a couple seconds away from the command to start the engines for the field here.
Start your engine.
And now let's take a look at the starting lineup for today's 7th round of the championship. As we mentioned on pole, Tommy Archer, first pole for the Dodge Viper. The question for him, physically, how is he going to be able to do it? Paul Gentilozzi currently leading in the points, 3 wins this year, as we said. And notice the difference here in the speeds. Now, it's an even bigger gap when we go back to the second row. They had over half a second over this duo. Boris said will start third in the Esperanti. He won this year, but it was at Sebring in a Mustang. Then they made the change. Brian Simmel, most recent winner at Sears Point, of course, the defending series champion, and now taking a run at defending that championship. Mike Lewis starts inside row 3, currently 5th in the points, always consistent, always very quick, as is Johnny Miller, as you see, 5 top 4 finishes this year already. Moving to row 4, Lou Gelati, the big win at Long Beach. And that car always very, very fast in a straight line, and under braking, he could be something to watch going into those festival curves. Randy Rollman, he's had 5 top 10 finishes, but he was very fast after getting spun and dropped to the back at Sears Point. He may have found the form we've been looking for from Randy this year. Tommy Dreese, of course, won Long Beach last year, on the way to becoming the series' most improved driver last year. Joined by Leighton Reese. He had a skiing injury, missed a number of races early in the year, so in terms of the points, he's well back, but he is truly a veteran and very quick in the series. Justin Bell, big story here. The Durhug Motorsports crew up all night rebuilding an engine in that car, so he didn't have to replace it and go to the back. He leads in the rookie points substantially. Joining him is Dan Miller, who is second in the rookie points, but again, quite a few back of Justin Bell at this point. Row number 7, Steve Pelkey. Only 11th, his best finish this season, but he's always right in that area, knocking on the door of the top 10. And Bob Ruman, 3 top 10s have him nicely placed in the points this year as well. We look now at row 8. Don Sack, they had to change the engine. There was no way to rebuild it when he threw an oil pump belt, so he goes to the back of the pack. Will actually start 22nd today, even though he qualified right there inside row 8. Mike Davis also qualified on that 8th row. He finished 3rd in the 2000 Rookie of the Year points chase. That's Boris Sed's teammate. Then in row 9, it's Tom Miller. This is his 5th career start in the Moose Drool machine. Nice to have him along. And Simon Gregg, who not only has had some success in Trans Am, but of course winner in the AGT category at the Rolex 24 Hours in Daytona earlier this year. And then we go back to Kerry Alexander, 4 career top 10 finishes, driving one of the Panos Esperantes, joined by Jim Matthews. His rookie debut was at Sebring this year. Now, he's run at Portland, but never in a Trans Am car, so this is new territory for him. Mike Rocket, this is literally his first ever Trans Am start. Great to have him on board. And Claudio Bertin this year driving the Panos Esperanti, the Line-X machine. He debuted in the series in 1993, has made sporadic starts, and great to have him on board for the full season. And in the last row, Paul Fix didn't even get a qualifying speed, had a big crash, couldn't get out in qualifying, and of course he'll be joined by Don Sack back at the pack at this point. Now what we want to do, you saw some brief shots, we want to take you through our onboards. Starting in the 20th spot, number 35 is Kerry Alexander, the Wicks Lumber Trilithic Panos Esperanti. He's going to have some great views coming up through the pack. Then we'll also be on board with 6th starter Johnny Miller, number 64, the Automation Direct Cutler Hammer Jag, always very fast and exciting. And then starting 4th, we're going to have the great view from Brian Simmel, the defending series champion, the Tommy Bahama Casual Islandwear Mangusta, who is starting, as we said, in that 2nd row. So some great views coming up at this point. They are underway, completing the first of 2 pace and parade laps as they head down the front straight. Tommy, obviously, you've been here now for a couple of days, been watching what's going on. Any final thoughts going into this?
Well, 2 things. Obviously, we've beat the story about the festival curves, but anything can and usually does happen there. The other thing is pit stops, and everyone keeps it close to the vest. No one wants to tell us exactly what we're doing. These guys, some of them have dishes on their pit cards and so forth. So, but I think if I had to put my money on it, Will Moody, who orchestrated those 4 consecutive championships for the AER team, he's turning the wrenches on Tommy Archer's car. I'm going to put my money on the Archer team.
Going with Archer for the first win. Let's go down to the pits. Calvin?
Well, Greg, tire management will definitely be an issue this afternoon. Everyone in the field is starting on the softer compound, the 200. To top that, none of these teams have run 125 miles continuous in race conditions. Remember, at Motorsport, we had that red flag period. Now, that's really going to be a factor here this afternoon. On top of that, quirky race surface here at Portland. Typically, the track surface is about 30 degrees higher in relationship to ambient than at most racetracks. So a real challenge for the drivers this afternoon. Certainly, pit stops will be as well. Chris Neville.
Yeah, I think one thing we have to remember is this is the 2nd pit stop race. In the first pit stop race at Mosport, we had penalties galore because of speed violations in pit lane. Out of the top 10 group, pretty much only 2 guys weren't assessed penalties. That was Tommy Archer and Paul Gentilozzi. They finished 1-2. Back to you guys in the booth.
Well, Tommy, he brings up a good point, too, in that as we take a look at the mandatory pit stop rules, you have to pit under green, minimum 6 gallons of fuel, and you have to declare your fuel, how much you're going to take. I mean, there are some regulations to follow here.
There are none of these fluid pit stop, evolving pit stop strategy. You pretty much have to decide how much fuel you're going to put on board and so forth. The thing about the pit speed violation, these cars are not like the ALMS cars or the Indy cars, Formula 1 cars with the electronic speed limiters. These guys have to do it by attack reading, and needless to say, a bunch of them need to get a little bit better at it today.
Yeah, that was very clearly pointed out. Now, lights are out on the pace car. Boy, they are crowding it right there. Tommy Archer all over the back of the pace car, and you can't pass the pace car until it actually gets into pit lane. So he's going to have to be very, very patient. The pace car makes the turn. Now it's up to Archer. Oh, Gentilozzi, a little intimidation there. Wants to let Tommy know that this is going to be a fight. Here we go. Oh, the field streaming out, the accordion effect. Matthews way wide. You can't improve your position. There's Bertine. We're still not green, and we're waved off. And we are waved off, I would suspect, for the very reason we had cars darting everywhere out there.
What usually happens there, it's hard to know without being that far back in the field, but there's an accordion effect, and I think Jim Matthews, probably everyone stopped in front of him. He popped out to keep from running to the back. What happens if the front row starts doing a little bit, cat and mouse, that just, accentuates it as it goes back through the grid. So that's a non-start. The race distance will start now in terms of counting laps, but the starter didn't like that. There was a lot of elbowing going on there, a little, maybe even the high stick in there. Paul Gentilozzi and Tommy Archer. I think it's hard to tell who was initiating that, but obviously Tommy Archer, it's his grid to set, but Paul wants to let him know that he's the guy he's going to have to go through for this victory.
Yeah, putting the lean on him a little bit. I don't think there was contact, but he was running him mighty, mighty close.
I think there was contact on about 4 occasions, actually. We'll see.
We'll see. Now this, let's go back and take a look at it. Now they've already really got done with the shoving match, and this is when they started to roll into the throttle, isn't it? The back of the field is where they said the issues were, and that was the wave up. But that happened earlier, too, I think.
Yeah, and the rule as far as, or fortunately, actually, for Jim Matthews, the way they measure improving your position is if you're out of line. It's very much the NASCAR mentality. They can see you. That means you're out of line unless you're on the front row, and there's no gray area. If you're out, you're going to be coming in. So this is actually a break for Jim Matthews.
And now, of course, they don't have a pace car in front of them that's going to be setting the speed at all, so it's all up to Tommy Archer, and if he wants to come through perhaps a little bit quicker, he might be able to get away with it. And obviously, this Viper, by the way, folks, we should point out to you, is a V8 engine in it, not the V10 that's normally in the Viper, so there's no inherent grunt advantage or anything from a couple extra cylinders. And, of course, Gentilozzi has had his fair share of starts from the front row. He quickly pulls right up, and there it goes again. Squeeze, yeah, maybe a little touch there. Now he moves way out. They bump a couple of times, and we get the green nonetheless. And there's Mike Davis way in the back taking a look. Simo trying to move over, thinking about going underneath. Archer locks up. Gentilozzi protects just enough. Boris third, Simo fourth, Lewis fifth. Oh, look at Miller trying the inside of Lewis. Lewis gets tagged by Gelati and parks the field. There it is.
This is just another example of what happens. I think Miller got into him and started pushing him, and thought he would push his way through. Up front, Gentilozzi is all over the back of Archer. You saw some lockup from Archer.
The top four have made their break a little bit here. There's Gelati, but he's already slipped way back in fifth, got involved in that incident.
And the advantage from qualifying, oh, look at that. Archer struggling getting his tires up to temp and pressure, locked up. Paul gets by pretty easily. What I was going to say was the advantage from qualifying continued into the final practice, and Archer was again quickest. You never know what happens, but they have a full night between final practice and the race. There's no activity in the morning of the race. So
he's got something. He may have a flat tire now.
That makes a little more sense. You know what that is? That's the left front. Yeah, I bet you took a valve stem off from those start contra temps between he and Paul. It's easy to clean a valve stem off. That's exactly what happened here. This is not going to be the last you'll hear about this. He's going to be hot.
Well, and obviously, because we saw that lockup almost immediately after he came through the festival curves. In that next turn, he started to lock up. So his tire was probably going down at that point. On board with Simone. Oh, he got a great drive, and he's by him. Boy, he got by Boris Said very, very cleanly, and now he's thinking about Gentilozzi. Nope, Gentilozzi covers heading into turn one. But Brian Simmel wasting very little time, of course, taking advantage of the problems for Archer. But boy, Brian looks to be hooked up very, very effectively and early in this.
That was kind of set up. Paul had a tough time in the real tight part of the festival, and that's what he got, almost went off the road on the exit, and Boris was kind of bottled up, and Brian took advantage of that. And Paul, again, now that he's out front, being a little bit more tentative. It'd be interesting to see if they settle in, if Paul can't stretch away, or if he's going to have his mirrors full.
Boy, there's some debris on the back straight as well, right in where they would normally run. Everybody running wide of that. Fortunately, that's pretty much a flat-out piece of territory. Brian closing up, as you would expect, a little bit under braking. Now, here we go onto the front straight, and let's check in with Calvin Fish. What happened with Tommy Archer, Cal?
Well, they had a real problem. There was some rubbing going on down the left side of the bodywork, cut down that left front. They went to change the tire. Shouldn't have been a big deal, but the threaded nut would not go on to the stub there, and they lost valuable time. They just managed to stay on the lead lap, so that is critical here at Portland, but a lot of work for Tommy Archer now this afternoon.
Well, assuming that car is healthy, it'll be interesting to see what it may have been like on the lap. Now, watch right here, Tommy. Boom, that's one. But there, I think it had already
damage has already been done. It'd be interesting to see if Calvin can get an actual look to see if the valve stem is still on that tire that they came off. But if that car is not healthy, Paul Gentilozzi is going to be catching a very upset Tommy Archer.
And Archer, with that speed, of course, he wants to do anything he can as we watch the rest of that pileup down the festival curves. He'll do everything possible to stay in front, just praying for yellow.
It's interesting.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Talking with Paul yesterday, Paul kind of has sent the word out amongst the guys in the series. If there's any funny business that takes him out of the championship, he said, if you get it to me, he says, I flat out will wait and you will not finish that race. If that same sort of philosophy applies to Tommy Archer, we got some fireworks coming if Paul gets up onto the back of that Viper.
Oh, and Simmel runs wide, and Borisset wastes no time, ducks right back underneath. And, of course, that little bit of a maneuver there has allowed Gentilozzi to open up a little bit more of a margin as he continues to lead now here at Portland International Raceway. Simmel and Sett continue to battle. We will be right back. Welcome back to Portland International Raceways for the Trans Am Series for the BF Goodrich Tires Cup. Huge crowd on hand here. And I'll tell you what, Tommy Archer's prayers were answered. He got a full course yellow. There was debris scattered everywhere on the track. They've elected to go yellow, presumably to clean that up. And Tommy almost wondered if they also wanted to prevent Paul Gentilozzi catching Tommy Archer and what may happen at that point.
As relieved as Archer was to see that yellow, Paul was probably equally relieved because that was a really curious situation with the flat tire, obviously caused by the contact before the green flag. And there is the debris from that first turn. That looks like the door off Don Sack's car, perhaps. So, I mean, it's not one of these phantom yellows per se, but a little bit more on the Archer story down to Calvin Fish.
Well, Tommy, you should still be driving, mate, if you got eyes like that. If you could see this valve stem ripped out, here it is on Tommy Archer's left front. Damage right inside the rim, actually. These boys really hitting each other as they went around on that formation lap, and ultimately it cut the left front down. But as we've seen already, Tommy Archer now at the tail end of the field, and he's going to be fighting mad.
And fast. We were talking about it. The margin that he and Gentilozzi had over the rest of the field, including Sett and Simmel, Tommy, over half a second in qualifying. Now, of course, that may have closed up in those final practices, but nonetheless, the potential is there with some help for Tommy to come streaming through here.
Well, now, an interesting thing. I'm assuming that they probably did their 6-gallon fill at that time. So another thing to check on would be if he did in fact do a 6-gallon fill. His mandatory stops out of the way, so he's not at nearly the disadvantage you would think. We've got to keep tabs on him and see how he plays through the field.
That'll be interesting to follow up on. Absolutely. You see, I think that is Archer now coming around, rejoining the back of the pack. And one thing that'll help him here, this is a West Coast trip. Oftentimes some of the regular players may not make the entire run. So the field of 20 cars instead of 40 cars, for instance, so he's got less that he'll have to do to get through it.
Well, and this is one of the key strategy things. It was caused by something out of his control. They didn't plan it this way. But for all the other competitors, if a guy makes his stop and a yellow happens subsequent to that, that guy has a tremendous advantage. Track position-wise is at the back of the grid, but the time gap that means is less than it's going to take to stop, slow down, go the speed limit all the way through the pits, and take on 6 gallons of fuel. So if I had to say, I'd say Tommy Archer, believe it or not, is in the catbird seat, assuming there was no other damage to that Viper.
And assuming they did take care
the
of
6
that
gallons. balance
stop,
correct.
which they very well may have done. So we're watching the field circulate under yellow. Michael Lewis now, Chris Neville, we understand, is out.
Yeah, I'm here with Mike Lewis, who's another victim of Tommy Kendall's frat party down in turn 1. And it looks like the 12 car has got a lot of green and black on it. Mike, can you tell us what went on?
Well, I mean, those of us who've been here before know you can't, you just got to once you get into the festival, that's it. You got to stay where you are. And some of us haven't been here before, and I guess they're going to make ground there. All I know is I've got hit from the rear. I've got green paint all over the car on the left side, and I don't know. I don't know what happened. I'd have to look at the tape to tell you, but it's certainly disappointing. I think we had a good car, and we're going to try to screw it back together, do some laps, but obviously we're out of it for anything up at the top 10.
Yeah, you can take a look at the car here, and it looks like they have a broken upper control arm. These guys are working real hard right now to get him back out there, and thank God they got a couple caution laps here, because he hopefully won't lose too many laps.
Well, Chris, it looked like it wasn't Miller that got him. It was Gelati turned him across, I think, Johnny Miller's nose.
I disagree.
You don't think so?
I think he knows what happens, and he was given the general. I'm pretty sure it was a shot from Miller that turned him.
Okay.
And so he knows what happened. He's being the gentleman given. I can't say definitively that Gelati wasn't involved, but to me it looks like he comes up, catches him in the rear wheel, turns him around, ended up doing some, hurting himself because he was stuck there behind him. But I'm pretty sure it was just those two cars that triggered it.
Well, speaking of some contact, we're going to go back, take another look at that contact between Gentilozzi here. We're on board with Brian Simmel right here.
This is the darndest thing I've ever seen. Watch Paul swerve to the left and come back right into Archer. I'm sure he'll have another explanation, but that's not real pretty.
And it looked like, he got him right where it would hurt Archer and not him, didn't he? I mean, he read it beautifully, and then
I don't
green. Let's go right quick down, back to Calvin.
Well, a quick update. Tommy Archer was not able to put fuel in at the end of that first lap because he didn't have enough room in the tank. You got to put a mandatory 6 gallons in the tank. They hadn't burned down enough fuel. If you don't put 6 in, you're going to get penalized anyway. So he will be back in for his mandatory fuel stop.
Well, that puts him a little bit more behind the 8 ball, obviously, so he's just going to have to drive. And, of course, we've been talking about his health, how he's feeling. Right now, when you've got the red mist along with all that adrenaline pumping in there, he may not even realize that he's in pain until this one is over. I think we're going to see a spectacular show from Tommy Archer. Expect the field to go green now this time by. Lights are reported. Yep, there they are out on the pace car.
I raised that issue with Will Moody yesterday. I said, would you ever consider starting with a lighter fuel load? And the issue becomes how many total gallons do you need to run 125 miles? And so obviously they hadn't burned off enough to get enough in, and there'd be another stop.
Yeah, it's fairly close with the size of the fuel tanks that you can make it with that +6 at some tracks. And this is pretty heavy acceleration in a couple areas, which means consumption. So probably playing that a little close to the vest. They haven't been here since '95, so those numbers they don't know. Meanwhile, here we go. And is that Dreesy trying a big move? And he went way early. And that's a no-no as well. There's Gentilozzi. Here comes Simmel. But look at the move by Dreesy as he's trying to come up past everybody. Couldn't get it done. And contact there, but everybody sort of slides through. Or did they? That's Bell in the orange vet. And Kerry Alexander had a pretty good run into that turn, but he got bottled up a little bit, lost a lot of ground. And Miller has dropped way back as well.
He was stuck there behind Lewis for so long and finally got clear. It looks like his car's okay, but he's got a little ways to come as well. There is the possibility we didn't see from that view. Someone could have gotten into the back of Miller, which pushed him into Lewis, but it was fairly clear to me that he's the one that turned Lewis.
So there's Gentilozzi, then Simmel, then Said. We go back here with Kerry Alexander. That's Johnny Miller right in front. Now he's up from 17th to 7th for Kerry Alexander. So obviously that frat party, as you were calling it, in the festival in the opening lap, he read it beautifully, was able to slide through and make up a lot of ground.
Well, at frat parties, there are the guys that are known to kind of pick up the scraps, and Kerry Alexander has slipped through there, and it was a long way to go, but that's a good run. 2 Esperantes in the top 7.
And Tommy Dreesy right now, well, he was shown as 4th. That was on the run-in last time. He's dropped back a couple of spots. Justin Bell showing the nose to Lou Gelati. Lou in that yellow and black vet right there. Not enough. Interesting study there. Gelati driving the old-style bodywork vet, and behind him, Justin Bell, the new-look bodywork, the narrow template car with the 3 areas in the wheel wells in the lower 10 inches of the car.
And Justin Bell showing some muscle, had a very nice run from the back at Sears Point, and showing some improved form, starting to gel with Durhog Motorsports. One of the things that we're aware of, they're running a performance friction pad, which has really kind of taken hold in this series. Performance Friction rightfully proud of their inroads. Last year they had 12 cars. This year I believe it's 22 or 24, as well as most of the IndyCar grid. So Performance Friction coming up with some good stopping products.
Doing some very good stuff indeed. We're watching here to see what kind of progress Mr. Archer may have made. There he is, working around Paul Fix, trying to pick up anything he can here and do it as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Chris Neville, we understand Randy Ruhlman's pit side.
Yeah, I'm here with Randy Ruhlman, and once again we go back to the frat party, and he was part of that Johnny Miller, Mike Lewis mosh pit action. He's got a lot of damage on the front nose, but that's not why he's in pit lane right now. They had a brand new rocker they threw in this car this morning, and once again on the first lap it broke. What's going on, Randy?
Well, it was a tough break, Chris. We thought we had a real good car after yesterday's final practice, and things got a little exciting up there in the hairpin, and I now understand why they call it the festival, because it was just one big party up there, and everybody decided that they were going to try to go through it all at once, and you know, it broke loose up there, and we got a little bit of damage, but that would have been fine. We would have been good for the rest of the day, but unfortunately, brand new rocker arm let go, and so the engine builder's here. He's going to try to fix it. We'll try to get back out and get some laps.
Yeah, something you don't normally see him doing in pit lane, fixing a motor. Pretty awesome.
Well, it's a tough break. Randy has shown some great speed this season, but his luck just seems to have absolutely deserted him. On board now with Johnny Miller as he is chasing the Corvette of Justin Bell with up front, Lou Gelati in front of them, but up way at the front, it's Paul Gentilozzi over Boris Said, Lou Gelati, Justin Bell, and Johnny Miller running in fifth. We'll be right back to Portland. Welcome back to Portland, everybody. The Trans Am Series for the BF Goodrich Tires Cup. Take a look there. Leighton Reese, he's somehow, we don't know exactly what caused it. We would suspect the incident in the festival perhaps broke the front end of that car. Chris Neville, when that front end drops on the ground, he's losing all his downforce. He's hurt.
You got it there. He was definitely involved in that mosh pit action. It seems these four guys all have a little bit of problems with their car. I was just with Mike Lewis again. He is strapping back in the car. It looks like they're going to get back out there. And talking to Leighton's crew, it doesn't seem like there are really any aerodynamic issues with the car right now. He says it's working pretty good, and he's going to stay out there.
All right, by the way, we've been following the action as well of Tommy Archer. Remember, dead last at that restart. He's already into the top 10. He's been picking cars off, just absolutely regular here. And also now, Brian Simo has slipped back to 7th. He's moved up, and that's, number 3. That's Gentilozzi. The board is out. A black flag for your championship points leader, Paul Gentilozzi. And the report is for the contact with Archer preceding the start when he rubbed him a little bit, Tommy.
Now the key here will be this will be a meaningless black flag unless if they let him add fuel. If he's allowed to, if he has to make a dedicated stop, this will be a meaningful penalty. If not, then it'll be the opposite. Archer, Gentilozzi's running a second faster than the field right now. Archer's the second fastest car on the track, but Archer's been caught in traffic and losing valuable distance that will eventually come out in the wash on those pit stops. So let's see what happens with Paul. Let's see, A, first if he'll honor it, and B, if he adds fuel.
Well, I don't believe that on a black flag stop, because you don't stop in your pit, Tommy. You go now to the, they have a black flag like pit box where you go and you stop. And so that's, I believe, where he has to report for that. There is the discussion. That is Kevin Bayless discussing with the Rocket Sports team, Mike Strickland and the gang, about what has to happen here. And here we go. Let's see if Paul peels into the pits. Looks like they're going to, since they're continuing the discussion, he's going to continue racing.
Well, when this happens, when you're the driver, you can feign your radio's unplugged, all these kind of things. They have a really nifty way of dealing with that. They'll pull your scoring card after 1 or 2 laps, and you can just run around for the fun of it. So he'll be in shortly, trust me.
Well, he can ill afford that to happen, considering the championship point situation right now. He's got to make his stop, and even if he loses positions and loses a few points, they quit scoring it, you get nothing.
And what's going on now, the reason it's smart to stay out for another lap, because if you're successful in lobbying it back the other way, you can't undo that penalty. So as happened at Indianapolis with Jacques Villeneuve and so all these different things, you lobby it until you're sure you're not getting anywhere, then you'll serve the penalty.
You just saw as we jumped on board with Brian Simo, some huge lockup from Johnny Miller. He's feeling the heat from Simo. As I was about to say a little bit ago, Simo slipped to 7th. We were wondering if there was a problem. There isn't. The car just, he got a little bit loose, ran wide, and got Freight Train, slipped back to 7th. He's now back up to 6th. Behind Gentilozzi, then Gelati, a great run to 3rd. Justin Bell is 4th. Johnny Miller 5th, and Simo Dreese Archer now up to 8th. And Kerry Alexander, best run of the season easily as he runs 9th.
Now, strategy-wise, here comes Paul Gentilozzi in to serve as penalty. Calvin is down there to call the action.
Well, it's a long pit lane here, Tommy, 45 miles an hour. Paul Gentilozzi comes down, and as Greg mentioned, you cannot put fuel in under a penalty situation, so he has to come all the way past his pit. Down here, one of the stewards here, Rusty, is going to bring him to a complete stop, and then they'll fire him back out of here. And I can guarantee you, those BFGs are going to be making some smoke and making some noise.
You saw something there. He revved the motor up, dumped the clutch. Because the tires are hot and these cars run such a small clutch, you actually spin the clutch. It's not like an Indy car where the clutch is of such a size with normal pit stops where you can break the tires loose easy there. So back to 12th place, I believe, for Gentilozzi. So I'm really surprised that Archer or none of the other front runners, they have enough fuel burned up. I'm really surprised nobody has ducked in, because especially with Archer being in traffic, he could stagger himself, serve his penalty, be back out on track on a clear track, plus with the added benefit that if you get a yellow, you're the king.
Well, maybe that's something that they're starting to work up, that strategy just a little bit. Meanwhile, with Gentilozzi's stop, Boris said leads, and not only leads, he does so by some 3.5 seconds at this stage. Lou Gelati second, Justin Bell on his way to perhaps his best finish. Johnny Miller up to 4th, and Brian Simo currently 5th. But Archer and Gentilozzi, the Jaws music starting to get louder. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Portland, where it continues to evolve here. Boris said right there, the Applied Computer Solutions, Panos Esperani leading comfortably, easily having the best run for this car. Of course, he won in a Mustang the opening round at Sebring. Now, there have been a couple of offs. I think that was Don Sack a little bit further back in the pack. Don very happy to have, oh, that's Mike Rocket, excuse me, in his Trans Am debut. Right there is Mike, and he gathered it back up and is doing okay at this point. But let's go back now and take a look at what happened. That is, big getting together right there.
Rocket and Pelkey, I think.
Yeah.
You caught the tail end of it. Those two cars get together, end up off track in the dirt.
You can see the dust.
That's after the triple right-hander. So chances are they got side by side in the right-hander and then got together when it went back left.
Now we're going to drop back just a little bit. There is Paul Gentilozzi. He has now fought his way up to 9th, and he's working on Alexander. He should be able to get by and pick up the 8th spot on board with Alexander. Watch and see if Paul sneaks through. Now his crew has been continuing as Paul goes by to argue. Their point is that as they were on the track, Paul was holding his lane. Tommy drifted over into him, and as a result, then Paul came back into Tommy. We're going to now go back, TK, and take a look at the replay, the entire sequence. Take us through it.
Well, here you see, now there's always a lot of jockeying that goes on. There was contact on the aborted start, just rubbing, but this is, I mean, Archer right here veers a little and does one of these rubs right there that happened on all the previous laps. But now this is the move in question. The pictures, I'm not going to change my story there. I mean, I'm sure Paul, maybe he swerved away from Archer from the earlier stuff, and then when he swerved back, didn't realize he was swerving all the way back into him. But the pictures are pretty damning.
Well, and it wasn't subtle, and I think that may have been the biggest faux pas here. Is if you're going to do something like that, don't make it quite so obvious. And I mean, there was no way you could miss that.
Well, like I said, there might be. I don't want to assign intent to Paul. If he was pulling away in frustration and then pulling back to get in line and misjudged that, the effect was they came together. Paul initiated, the valve stem got knocked off the tire, and Archer's race was perhaps ruined. So you can argue that. There's two sides to every story, and I'm sure we'll hear Paul's in vivid color afterwards. But you know, that I think the officials made the right call.
Well, and the interesting thing, folks, is while Boris said continues to lead, Tommy Archer is 5th, Paul Gentilozzi is 7th. This could get very interesting in a very short amount of time here at Portland. Don't go anywhere. We will be back. Welcome back, and you're on board with the new leader here at the Tommy Bahama 125, Johnny Miller. He has stayed out while a number of cars have ducked into the pits, and Johnny Miller picks up the lead. You can see second place. Guess who? Tommy Archer. Archer's tucked right in, coming into the festival. Archer looks. Archer shows the nose. Miller goes in just deep enough to fend him off, but Tommy Archer up to second. Remarkable, keeping in mind that he has not yet stopped, nor has Miller, but nonetheless, pretty amazing run by Tommy Archer.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, I think he's slipping behind the curve on strategy. During that yellow, we had Lou Gelati right before he came in. The first guy to pit, Simo, came in and said. And so those guys now have a tremendous advantage if a yellow comes out, because they will basically have had a free, when everybody else stops after the yellow, will all rejoin behind them, and they'll erase all the time they spent in the pit. So any of the contenders staying out right now are doing so at great peril.
This is essentially, as we're on board now looking back for Miller, this is the battle for the lead. And you can see Archer got a run on him. Here he comes. Archer moves inside. Miller covers. Archer's got to back up. Archer comes by, slides down the inside, picks up the lead. And Tommy Archer, your new leader, with Johnny Miller slotting back into second. Tommy Dreese's third. He's almost 5 seconds back of this duo. And Miller makes his way down into the pits. So Johnny Miller, maybe his crew is watching and listening on the satellite dish and heard what you were saying. And Chris Neville, Johnny Miller's in.
Yeah, Johnny has just come in. Looks like a good stop. I didn't really see any pit lane speed violations there. These guys are putting the fuel in. Doesn't look like they're making any other changes. And I don't see any fire on this one either, so that looks pretty good. Looks like a clear stop, and a little slow to get going. No major burnouts, and he's away.
That is, of course, perhaps what you were talking about, TK, with those clutches. They've got to be so careful with those, as Miller on his way out being very careful. Now, we're going to go back and take a look at the stop for Boris Said when he ducked in out of the lead, and it looked pretty routine until we had a little bit of an interesting moment here.
Yeah, routine except for the fire under the car.
Yeah.
Here you have it, and somehow, look at that, and he's totally unaware, still pouring fuel to that thing, and scary, scary moment. Gets away and it goes out, but if I was that guy with plugged in on the fuel, I'd want to know that.
And you can just see Lewis in the background, same scenario, and you wonder, I mean, obviously some fuel just had to have leaked down, and that was that. Now there's Miller exiting the pits, not quite up to speed yet, and Lewis was able to sneak by. There is Tommy Dreese, who sits in third. There's Gentilozzi, who is fourth. Now, of course, has moved up, and now Paul is going to come in and take his actual mandatory fuel stuff. Boy, he locked it up big time, trying to get down to that required speed, Chris.
He just pulled in. He made it all the way back up to the third spot, and this is his second time in pit lane. That penalty he was assessed early on definitely hurt him, but back up to third. Good stop this time. Oh, he stalled the car. He stalled the car. The guys are pushing it. Got it going again, and he's away.
And taking a look at the monitor here, Paul Gentilozzi thus far fastest lap of the race at a 1:15 flat. Archer second quick at a 1:15.2, and then Boris Said at a 1:15.7. Those are the only three guys. Well, check that now. Simo at a 1:15.5. 4 guys in the 1:15s right now, but Gentilozzi obviously very hooked up. There is Archer. Now the question is he going to make a stop fairly soon?
He was just a little bit ahead of Gentilozzi before Gentilozzi pitted. Time-wise, Gentilozzi was running about 0.2 of a lap faster than Archer. They're the quickest cars in the field, both in terms of absolute lap and as the laps have been clicking off. Kind of consistently faster than everybody else and 0.2 quicker than Archer. So Archer's got to make some time. Hopefully not get caught in traffic. Hopefully not get a yellow. Get his stop in and out of the way.
I wonder if that's not his strategy. He's got clear track. Gentilozzi's buried in traffic a little bit. He's running light. He can just continue to hammer the laps in and make up a little ground. We'll find out when we come back. Welcome back to Portland, and Tommy Archer has made his stop. It was absolutely perfect and routine, a quick stop. He's back out, and the strategy, TK, may have paid off because he comes out right behind Boris Said. Boris Said now is the race leader. Archer's second.
What they did is they rolled the dice. My being a drama queen only applied if there was a yellow between when some guy stopped and he didn't. Now, Will Moody, I guess, probably played all the odds. Portland is not big on yellows generally. He was able to run on a clear track with a little bit lighter fuel load, like you see a lot of times in Indy cars, guys will stretch it 3 or 4 laps, try to run demon laps during that time, and it leapfrogged him all the way. So from here to the end, the order is as it looks. And you have Archer, you can see Boris set up ahead. What's that, about a 2-second gap, and they have pulled clear of everybody else. Obviously, Paul's trouble had helped, but Paul, you know, that extra black flag stop, unless there's a yellow, comes into play big time, which it has so far.
Oh, it's a huge, huge moment there. Interestingly now, Archer, as we pointed out, his fastest lap, a half-second quicker than Sed's fastest lap. We'll see if that's going to play into anything. Now, we've had a couple of black flags. Sadly, one of them going to Justin Bell, who was on the way to perhaps his best run in a Trans Am car, the number 40 Durhog machine. Why? Too much speed in pit lane. So a problem for him. Now we're going to drop back to the battle for 3rd and 4th. That's Gelati running in 3rd. Right behind him is Brian Simo in 4th, who we're on board with at this point.
This is a tough run for Brian. He fell back there at the start, got his pit stop out of the way, but he isn't the kind of normal dominant force that we've been. I mean, his best spot, generally the best place to pass here is going into the festival, but that's predicated on getting a good run out of the final corner and having good straightaway speed. So he is not showing the kind of strength that we're used to from the defending champions.
On board with Simo here. By the way, Leighton Reese also has been nabbed for a pit lane violation in terms of excessive speed. And so that's going to hurt him just a little bit as well. We've seen that can cost you some serious time. Now, Simo has really got to run out of there. But here's where, tell you what, Lou Gelati's engines always make prodigious power here. And at Long Beach, one of the areas he was strongest on the track was under braking. And that was one of the reasons he was able to move up so well. But right here, Simo looks to perhaps be a little bit quicker in the corners. But if Lou can get the power down well, he's in some good shape. Meanwhile, at the front, here we go. The battle for the lead is on. Boris said less than a car length clear of Tommy Archer. We're working lap number 28 at this stage. And it's just this close, and Archer got a run. You normally don't see a lot of passing into one, but boy, did he get out of the festival, but Boris is going to run him tough.
Yeah, and talk about showing it when you need to. Tommy Archer's lap, that last lap, 1.3 seconds faster with a clear racetrack for both cars. So obviously Tommy Archer has a lot of car left at this point in the race.
And maybe Tommy's thinking, you know, the faster I get to the front and go, the sooner this race is over and the sooner I can take a couple more aspirin here. So he's in some pain. Here comes Simo trying to get by Gelati. Couldn't make it work at this point. Calvin Fish, right now, Brian Simo looks like he's being held up by Gelati.
Well, he is, Greg, but he's also suffering from a broken header, which certainly cost him some horsepower, so he's not the fastest thing in a straight line. And earlier in the race, he had a little bobble. The car's been loose on him. So they actually did a little NASCAR trick, took some tape off the radiator, and that should take some downforce away from the front and help balance the race car a little bit.
You can see right there exactly what Calvin was talking about is Simo drops off on the straight, but getting into the turn, the car looks to be pretty well balanced now, Tommy, and he closes right up. Boy, Gelati running a little wide, missed the apex there.
Yeah, this is the most frustrating thing for a driver. Drivers never have enough straightaway speed. You know, I'm killing them in the corners. I need more power.
Gentilozzi's in and a lot of speed out, or smoke out from the car. Chris?
Yeah, Paul Gentilozzi just pulled in. A lot of grass on the front of the car. It looked like they were having a little bit of an overheating problem, so they came in, cleared it off. He's going back out, but I'll tell you, that probably hurt him once again. 3 times in pit lane in one race. That hurts.
Especially as the championship leader who had fought his way with 3 great wins up back into the lead in a fairly comfortable one. All things being relative, of course, at that. Meanwhile, there is Archer out front. We saw Leighton Reese coming into the pits as well to serve his stop and go. So that's going to hurt his chances. And now we get word Tommy Dreese was speeding in the pit. So, well, I'll tell you, in the heat of competition here, apparently problems, it just gets away from you a little bit. Oh, Archer, a lot of lock up there, Tommy.
That was more of that same look when he, at the start of the race, when he had that left front tire going down. Let's monitor that. Maybe he just got in there hot. The gap looks about the same.
He's obviously trying to shake Boris a little bit if he can at this stage. And he comes by the official margin. Now he gained about 1/10 of a second at that one, but not any quicker. And Boris all over him. There's a look right now at your top 4.
Speed Vision's coverage of the Trans Am Series for the BF Goodrich Cup is brought to you by Eaton Cutler Hammer, providing electrical products and services for where we work, live, and play. And by Wicks Lumber, in association with Capital Windows, Anderson Windows, Trilogy, and Trilithic.
Welcome back to Portland, and we've had a few more developments. First of all, there is Tommy Archer, continues to lead. Now you'll notice that Boris said nowhere in the picture behind him. Boris ended up having to go into the pits for a block flag penalty, not for speeding, mind you, but for working on the car while he was in for the yellow. That is expressly against the rules. We're going to take you back and take a look at a replay of what happened here. This is Boris said now, as he is back in the pack a little bit. Now see there, one of the crew members, Tommy, went to the grill. They're just wiping debris out of it, but you cannot touch the car when you're refueling.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, all you want is a level application of the rules. The question to me is, why in the heck is that rule in place? They probably want to keep guys from throwing tires at it. Down to Calvin with Brian Simo on a live pit stop.
Unscheduled pit stop here for Brian Simo in that battle with Lou Gelati. He locked up a front tire. I believe he has a flat spot. That's the word we had here. There you can see it actually right now. You see a bit of a flat spot there. They were going to wait for a caution, but there's a problem on the rear as well, and you can only change one tire under caution. They decided to bring him in under green, changing right side tires. The right rear is taking a little bit longer. Doesn't seem to be a major issue. See the brake smoke pouring out of the front here. Tires are on. They'll drop the jacks. Whoa! Wheel gun was still on the back there. Scary moment for the mechanic on the back end of the car.
Interesting too, Calvin, because you would think the problems with tires here would be on the left side with these long turns, but apparently if you flat spot one, obviously you've got to take care of it. He's out, but that's going to cost him dearly.
Yeah, back to the application of the penalty on Boris.
Let's quickly go back down to Cal, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think the problem is, Greg, he's in that battle with Lou Gelati. He had to get on the brakes really hard, and as you turn right into the festival chicane, it basically unweights the right side of the car. He locked that inside right front up trying to miss Lou, and that really cost him dearly.
Back to the Boris said penalty. I mean, that was the correct application of the rule as the rule is written. It makes me wonder why the rule is written that way. If you're going to have pit stops, why say you can't work on the car, especially in that instance? But as the rules are written, everybody knows it. That was a level application.
Well, I think it's probably because they're trying to formulate these pit stops a little bit after the Le Mans profile, where when you're getting fuel, you can't work on the car. You can do your driver's change, but you cannot work on the car, change tires, anything in the American Le Mans or at Le Mans itself. So they may have been trying to pattern it after that, perhaps. But everything so far has been conspiring to help Tommy Archer not only to the lead, but to a huge lead. He's 12.5 seconds up over Lou Gelati. We want to clarify something. I mentioned earlier they were going to have a black flag penalty for number 40, Justin Bell. They decided it was not Bell, it was the number 15 of Dreesy. Dreesy has served his stop, so Bell continues to run in third and only a couple seconds adrift of Lou Gelati. Johnny Miller in fourth, and Boris said, black flag and all, is up into the top 5 once again. Welcome back to Portland, everybody. I'm Greg Kramer along with Tommy Kendall. Joining us in the pit lane, Calvin Fish and Chris Neville. Nice to have you with us here. And you got a good look there at your leader, Tommy Archer. And what an awesome story that has been. Problems early with the flat tire. Who would have known? But they played the strategy beautifully from that point on. Tommy, you talked about Will Moody and just being absolutely brilliant and what he can affect here. And he's pulled off a miracle.
Well, there are very few coincidences in racing. Generally, what you put in is what you get out the other side. Bad luck accepted, but Will Moody, this is not his first rodeo. He knows how to do these things, and even though that team from the outside, when they had that second early in the season, I said, and then when I heard Will Moody was behind it, I said, I think you're going to be seeing a lot more of those, and that is true. He's benefited from Gentilozzi having to make the 2 extra stops, but now we're back with Johnny Miller as well. He also has come back. That early yellow erased a lot of the guys' misfortunes.
Now what we're going to do here, Johnny Miller, we've got a great camera angle for you. It's the foot cam, and as he comes onto the front straight, we're going to stay with it. Tommy, talk us into what he's doing going into the festival and the ballet on the feet work here.
We can see his left foot's hovering over the brake pedal. He's obviously a left foot braker, and you're going to get to see him. It's just real simple. No clutch, probably little blips on both downshifts. There's a little twitch you're seeing there. He's actually relieving pressure on the brake pedal when he ticks the throttle, which is usually one of the advantages of left foot braking, is keeping constant pressure, and I think he's probably not even aware he's doing that.
Right here, you watch him brake, throttle, brake. I mean, he's trying to balance the car a little bit using both the throttle and brake.
And that's in that turn 5 area where you have the different camber changes, and you have some grip, and then you don't, and then you have grip again.
So when he dabs the brake, is he just trying to get the back end to settle and keep bite back there then?
Yeah, he's basically trying to keep the weight shifted where he wants it. And in these cars, you know, you wouldn't want to try this at home, as they say. This is a professional driver on a closed course. But honestly, the gearboxes allow them, and they ship just as well, if not better, without the clutch. If you don't match the revs correctly, which is usually what the Synchro does, it'll grind like crazy. But if you get the timing right, like Johnny is, and match the revs, it'll go into gear without any trouble at all. No need to use the clutch.
You can see he only went down 1 gear into that very fast turn 7, then dabbed it down again a little bit, a couple of gears into the last turn. But boy, that sequence of corners so fast. And once again here, he makes the run up into the festival.
Watch again as he blips on the downshift. If we hold it on, see if he actually... See him releasing pressure a little bit there with the downshift. Maybe he's releasing pressure in response to some wheel lock or something like that. So, but it looked like the lap before it was timed with his blips.
Fascinating to watch. There is Miller right now as he continues to circulate in the 4th spot. Now, you'll notice Mike Lewis right behind him, but Mike, of course, down a lap as a result of that problem, or a few laps as a result of that problem earlier. They did get it fixed, but cost him dearly. There's number 40, Justin Bell, that bright orange machine, on his way to perhaps his best run and his best finish since he became a Trans Am driver, comfortably leading Rookie of the Year. Of course, a former international FIA GT2 category champion in the Viper program, so he's pretty comfortable in this type of a high-speed equipment. But these cars have their own idiosyncrasies, and Justin has taken him a little bit, I think, to just adjust to them, but showing right now that he's got it figured out.
I think that's a real eye-opener for a lot of guys that come from different series. They look from the outside, and these are kind of a beast unto themselves. And Justin has come to grips with it maybe quicker than a lot of other guys. Some guys throw up their hands and go away saying, you can have that stuff. I can't figure it out. They're a lot different.
Well, there's a look at those Amerisweet's rookie points, and Justin Bell up comfortably by some 50 points, and he's just coming off his best finish of the season, a 5th at Sears Point, so obviously he's got a little momentum working for him. Miller, Lazaro, that's a pretty interesting story. He subbed for Archer at Sears Point, and then at Moseport, they just showed up and ran for Tom Coleman 2 races and 3rd in the points. Anthony Lazaro, boy, if he could get a full-time ride in this, he could shake things up a little bit too, one might suspect. On board now with Johnny Miller once again as he continues to run in the 4th spot here. We are working lap 38 of 65 here at the Tommy Bahama 125, 7th round of the Trans Am Championship for the B.F. Goodrich Tires Cup at Portland. Welcome back to Portland, everybody. You're watching our leader, Tommy Archer, continuing to have a very good run here. Not the first time that he's had a pretty good run here at Portland. In 1992, he ended up in 2nd spot. And in 93, as we're going to show you in our Trans Am flashback, he was involved in one of the most intriguing races this track has ever seen. Let's take a look at a Trans Am flashback. Portland in 93, one of the great races of all time. Scott Sharp had the pole with his Camaro, but Ron Fellows was in hot pursuit in the early going. There was a caution, and on the restart about halfway through, Fellows right there is passed on the outside by the Dodge of Tommy Archer. Archer moves into 2nd. Fellows has to fight hard to hang on to 3rd, but shortly thereafter, Fellows retook the 2nd place in the festival curves, got underneath Tommy. Then later in the race, 1 lap to go, Fellows gets under Sharp and spins him, takes the lead before the Archer brothers are able to capitalize. Here they come. There's Tommy, Bobby right behind, and right there, Fellows just able to squeeze back on in front. He's able to hold them off on that final lap, and Ron Fellows won the first of what were to be 3 consecutive Trans Am wins here at Portland. Now you'll be able to see Ron Fellows Monday night as Speed Vision's coverage of the American Le Mans Series continues from right here at the Grand Prix of Portland. Monday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, you will be able to watch and see if Ron Fellows can bring another win, this time in the GTS division for the big Corvettes. Of course, the Audis will be running to see if they continue their streak in the LMP 900 category. The Porsche and BMW war continues in GT. Make sure you check it out Monday night here on Speed Vision. Meanwhile, Tommy Archer trying to get rid of those 2 second spots and get the winner's trophy on the mantle in a Trans Am race here, and it's always been with Chrysler products.
It has, and I'll tell you what, Tommy, he's got a long ways to go, but after the qualifying performance, his PR guy said that there's a little bit of talk going around the team that they're just going to maybe break one of his legs before every race so that he comes back with a vengeance. I think that's a little bit extreme, but...
Well, maybe that's part of that Will Moody mindset. He does what he has to. Calvin,
Well, I just spoke to Will. I said, how's the driver doing? He said, to be honest with you, it's been so busy in the first half of this race, we haven't had much chance to talk about it. But he said the adrenaline was pumping. He said, my concern is now we're just past the halfway point, about 30 laps to go. He said now he's really just got to get into a pace, and that really gives him time to think about his injury. So he's concerned about it, but he said he did about 80 miles yesterday. He really didn't have a big problem. They've had Anthony Lazaro on standby all weekend long in case Tommy wasn't up to the task. And there's a rule that says if you do over 50%, your points are good. So even if Anthony did have to jump in, he would have still got his points. Meanwhile, Justin Bell's out there on the racetrack. He's struggling a little bit this weekend on horsepower. He's one of the few cars in the field with the exhaust exit from the left side of the car. Very stringent noise levels are really looked at here. 110 decibels, and the noise reading is taken from the left side. So Justin and the team, heavy muffling, a lot of back pressure. That costs horsepower, Tommy.
Yeah, it sure does. You see it, actually they exited out both sides, and that's one of the things always curious. They have a couple days a year. The IndyCar uses one of them where they have a noise exemption. The rest of the days, all the cars have to be underneath that quiet rule. It's kind of seems like an oxymoron. Unlimited speed race cars that have to be quiet, but it's the rules of the game, and it's a nice place to race, so everybody doesn't complain too much.
We're also watching a good battle here. That's Johnny Miller, sits in the fourth spot, and he actually now has gone around. He's been chasing Gelati. Gelati was in third, and Miller was working him and working him and working him, and finally he got by. Now the orange car, who has 2 lap cars between himself now and Miller, is Justin Bell, who sits in second spot, and Miller now has to try and get through these 2 lap cars and then be able to close up and take a run at Bell. Problem is he's got Gelati, who's not exactly just going to go quietly here. Meanwhile, talking about Archer and those 2 second places in Trans Am, he did bring a couple of wins for Dodge, the last one coming in 1993, and an absolutely brilliant drive at Lime Rock. It was just an incredible drive by Tommy, and but he'd sure like to bring him another one now. Now here's number 33, that's Boris Said in the 5th spot. Then the lap car Sack, and that's 3. Gentilozzi got underneath Sack, so this is going to become a battle for the top 5, and of course Gentilozzi leads in the points, Boris in the top 5 in points, but he's back a little bit. This could be interesting.
Yeah, Paul's been quite a bit stronger down the straightaway than Boris all weekend, so it'll be interesting to see. Didn't get nearly as good a shot. Got pretty crossed up, spun the tires coming off there. Let's see how much that Rocket Sports horsepower. Look at that.
Boy, just eats it up, doesn't it?
Dialing him back in. The last lap, it's hard to know with traffic, but the last lap, Paul was 3.4 seconds faster than Boris.
Whoa, and Boris gets into the back of that 05 Miller. That messes him up, and there, well, settled it right there because Gentilozzi wasted no time, cut right, and made the pass. So Boris we've got it. Oh, and that is Gelati. Gelati running in the 4th spot, trying to get by apparently Paul Fix. We don't know exactly what happened, but apparent contact of some sort, or at least a moment, and that now is going to park Gelati and bring him right back to these guys.
There's about a 13-second gap back to Gentilozzi. Now it's probably less than half that. He got going relatively quickly, but I got tangled up with a back mark. You see a lot of this is a long race, and they've lapped up through 8th place, the leader has, and so the guys are in traffic nonstop. And sometimes in these longer races, guys get tired, guys get a little frustrated, and you see guys, I like that move with Boris putting the bumper there. You know, that's kind of uncalled for. I mean, when you're trying to get by a lap guy, you feel justified because you're trying to hold off the guy behind you, but you can't just drive over the top of people.
And we're getting a report that part of the problem is apparently Boris's tires are starting to go off big time, and that car is sliding all over the place. Well, we're going to take a quick break here. 43 laps complete here at Portland. Welcome back to Portland, where Tommy Archer in the Viper continues to lead, and if he can hang on for the win, it would be the 5th different manufacturer to win here this year. We've had Jag, Chevy, Ford, and the Cavalli Mangusta with wins, and he could make it the 5th if he can hang on for the Viper at this stage, and it's looking pretty good. Although Justin Bell has trimmed over 3 seconds off at this point and is closing a little bit. Meanwhile, let's drop back to the 5th spot. This is Paul Gentilozzi. We're going to take a look at sort of the roller coaster ride that he's had here today. Gentilozzi, it has been very much an eventful race, no question of that. And of course, it all started as they were getting ready for the start of the race. He was alongside with Archer, And they got together right here. Watch this. He moves over, then he moves back. Boom. And that, of course, ripped the stem off of Archer's car.
Making some smoke.
Comes in for a stop-and-go penalty. Gets back on track. Of course, that cost him dearly. Then he came in for his fuel stop. Then he stalls it right there. Valuable seconds cost there. He quickly refires. He gets going. The veteran experience keeps you calm. Now, look at the smoke rolling up and look at the dirt and debris on the grill. This was an unscheduled stop. That cost a few more valuable moments, no question, but then things have turned around. He was able to get back into it. Right here, Boris said gets into the back of Don Miller, loosens Boris up a little bit, and Gentilozzi was able to sweep through underneath. He is now all over the back of Lou Gelati in the battle for fourth. If you remember, Gelati had the moment with Paul Fix, and so right now, all those problems Gentilozzi had, the experience of Paul to just stay with it, keep the speed up, and stay there, he could find himself very easily, perhaps, with a podium in this one yet.
If you listen to the opening interview with Chris and you hear Paul say, well, it's all about the championships, that nice easy day. You looked at the final results and said, oh, I finished fifth. Oh, nice solid conservative day. You would have had no idea. This is not the usual way you go about a conservative championship minded run.
No, he's been aggressive from the get-go, and even if it was true that Archer moved over on him a little bit or whatever on that start, when you're in the middle of a points championship battle, you wouldn't think you would do anything to jeopardize that. Maybe drop back that spot, give it up, whatever. But Paul's not. He's a scrapper.
Well, you've heard the story about the scorpion and the frog, and where that's kind of, he stabs the scorpion and kills him, the frog kills them both. With Paul, it's his nature. The guy is just intense. He's competitive. He doesn't leave anything to chance. Lots of intimidation. It's his game. And I think I really don't think that last thing, I think he swerved back not realizing he was that close. All the stuff that went on before that, the contact on the aborted start and the contact before that, I think they were shared it equally. That last bit, which was the real damning part, which brought the penalty, I think actually was absent the intent to do anything.
And we're getting a report that Lou Gelati is going to get a black flag. Whoa, there's contact. Gentilozzi wants by, and he wants by now. You can see the damage to Gelati's nose is probably affecting his arrow a little bit. But there's going to be a closed black flag on Gelati for the contact with Fix. They're not going to bring him in. They're giving him a warning. But that messed up arrow was enough, and Paul with that run was able to get by him easily. But boy, Lou never makes it easy. And of course, these guys have a tad bit of history, don't they?
Yeah, they do. A couple hot-blooded Italians. That was really close. If Lou hadn't given him room at the last second, Paul had the run and was coming up the inside. Gelati started to squeeze him over. He was about to get turned hard right into the straightaway wall on the right side. That's one of the things. That's one of the reasons they have spotters in Winston Cup, to know if you're clear. Here, obviously, you can't have him all the way around the track. But at the last second, I think he saw him and yielded.
And as a result, now he ends up in fourth with Gelati back in fifth. Let's go back and take a look here. And coming up, Gentilozzi let him know he wanted by in no uncertain terms.
And he chose the right. And look at that. Gelati's coming over, got into him a little bit on both parts. Paul backed out. Gelati gave him room, and Paul was able to get by.
Close call nonetheless, but both continue on, and Gentilozzi now up into fourth. Archer leads it. Bell is now, and Gentilozzi gets a closed black flag, a warning. Close means it's sort of furled up around the stick, and they pointed at you with the number board, and it's to say, don't do it again. We saw it, and if you do it again, then you'll get an open black, and that'll mean a penalty. So there's the issue. Now, there is Archer. Now, the last time by, Archer, the margin was down to 4.5 seconds. This time by, Tommy, it's up over 5. So perhaps Tommy Archer was just taking it a little easy, conserving tires, conserving ribs, conserving lungs and air, just to have something to fight with as we get down near the end of that. But we still have 15 laps to go here at Portland. Welcome back to a sunny Portland International Raceway, everybody. There is your leader. Tommy Archer continues to lead. The margin back to Justin Bell, who sits second, has been fluctuating the last few laps from 4.5 to 5.5 seconds. Every time Justin nips it down there in the orange Justin Bell driving experience Corvette, nips it down to under 5. Tommy responds, opens it back up again. It was down to 4.9 last time by. As they hit the stripe this time, it's actually 4.6. So Justin able to close up, perhaps because this guy right here in that green and black Jag, Johnny Miller, the Eaton Cutland Hammer and Automation Direct Jag, is closing it up. off. After he got around Lou Gelati and was able to get on some clear track, he's been able to take a run. Bell coming up on a lap car and gets by very cleanly. Miller now has to hope that he gets the same kind of treatment as he works through, and he does. That's Bob Ruman, who is very much a savvy veteran in the series. Got a wounded car. He's not going to hold anybody up, and we understand now it's the roller coaster is going back down into the dip for Paul Gentilozzi. Possible cut tire on the Jag. He may be swinging down into the pits. Chris will be there if that indeed happens. We'll be watching for it. Meanwhile, for Tommy Archer, continues to lead, but I tell you, Bell is definitely chipping away at things.
I'm a little bit worried about Tommy. I mean, one of the hard things in any long race is you settle in, and it's sometimes hard to keep your concentration. I'm really worried with the adrenaline flowing. He probably doesn't even feel that injury, but when you settle in, not only do you have time to think about it, the adrenaline, just from a physiological standpoint, adrenaline is a wonderful thing, and it takes, you're kind of in that fight or flight mode. Now, when you settle in, he might, his times have been fluctuating a full 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds.
Boy, we just were on board with Simo and Calvin Fish. Simo went by Boris, said like Boris was parked.
Well, Boris has definitely got some tire trouble out there, Greg. And one thing that you may see is some of these guys, if there's a full caution period, is take a gamble, come in, not just change one tire, which is all they're allowed under the rules, change all 4. What they then have to do is go to the back of the pack, but with fresh tires and just a handful of cars in front of them on the lead lap, they can still get to the front. It's going to dwindle down here. We're in a lap 52, I believe, coming up. So that possibility will not be as big as it was a few laps ago, but that was definitely on the minds of Boris said and his crew, and Gentilozzi spoke about it before the race today as well.
Well, and Calvin, obviously, that was a pass for position. Now Brian Simo up to 6, but Simo did, in fact, stop under green, changed 2 tires on the right side, and obviously that's going to give him anything helps at this stage, and it's paying off for him, and he went by Boris very easily.
And that was his last lap was the fastest of anybody in the field. It's not particularly fast relative to some of the times some guys ran earlier, but he, even with that cracked header, which they had said he had, you don't hear the cracked header. The car sounds okay from here, but you saw the straightaway speed differential between he and Gelati earlier, and but that extra grip is allowing him to run competitively.
There is Gentilozzi, and they're asking him to stay out one more lap just to determine if they're, if that tire is indeed in trouble, and they're leaving him out. Now he's moving around a lot. I watched him coming through that last turn. Car's skating around a lot, but I mean that could just be that with everything he's dealt with here, trying to drive fast and get through the pack, that he's just run the effectiveness right off of those tires.
It might feel awful, but the times aren't showing. He ran a 17.7, which is just a 10th off the quickest lap that go-around of Brian Simo. So you can see the car. He's really got his hands full. The car's really kind of crabbing on that long exit off onto the front straightaway. That Jag horsepower is really breaking those things loose, but it hasn't showed up on the watch yet.
One of the things, too, about this track, we've talked about it, the festival curves themselves, but going into the festival curves, you can make up a lot of ground if you have brakes that are doing the job. And, Tommy, earlier you talked a little bit about some of the developments in brakes, and Chris Neville is now going to flesh that out a little bit with our tech tip. Chris?
Yeah, technology is always one thing that these teams are looking at to try and figure out a way to get ahead. And this year, Performance Friction has released a new brake combination, rotor and brake pad. Last year, they had 12 teams running their equipment, and with this new stuff, they bumped that up to 22. And in Kart Champ cars, they've got 23 of 26 cars running this new stuff. Pretty much what you're looking at is less weight, more forward grip or inline grip under braking. It's a little bit cheaper, a lot more durable, and hey, that's the equation you want when it comes to brakes and trying to go fast.
Well, anytime you can cut costs and be more effective and efficient at the same time, that's a great story. We're watching right now, Chris, the battle for a second, and Johnny Miller has in fact caught Justin Bell, but I think it's more because Bell got held up in some traffic. Tommy Archer's gone. He got through some traffic very cleanly. He's now 6 seconds up on Justin Bell, but that has allowed Miller to reel in Bell at this stage. So the battle for second is on, and Miller, now that he smells opportunity, he's going to be relentless.
And we're kind of in new territory. Calvin touched on it in the open about
here he goes,
to the outside. Now he's set up for the inside without much trouble. Look at that muscle. Now they're coming up on the slow car, Jim Matthews. He's able to notch back in ahead. It looks like, or Justin Bell, who maybe took a little bit too much out of his rear tires trying to close on Archer, erased the gap in traffic, and then it was kind of a sitting duck there for Johnny Miller.
Matter of fact, Chris just gave us a call and said that's indeed what happened. Bell has reported his rear tires are gone. He's getting very little grip down to the ground, and as a result, cannot launch off the turns, and Miller scooted by. Absolutely no worries. The thing is, though, now the gap from Archer to Miller is 6.6 seconds, and we are now in our final 10 laps here at Portland. Welcome back to Portland for the 7th round of the Trans Am Series for the BF Goodrich Tires Cup. The Tommy Bahama 125. You're looking at Tommy Archer continues to lead here and is open at margin up, as we said, to about 6.5 seconds over this guy, the green and black Jag of Johnny Miller, who is having a very, very solid run here. Now, one of the reasons might just be some highly technical data equipment. And a little bit earlier in the weekend, Tommy Kendall took a moment or two and visited the data acquisition issue for our tech tip.
The computer age is not new to motorsports. The onboard data acquisition systems record things like wheel travel, vehicle speed, steering input, RPM, among other things. The uses most often talked about are how these are used to help tune the car. There's another not often discussed aspect that is equally important. Inside the inner sanctum where this precious data is stored at the Rocket Sports Transporter, they're going over the data. Johnny Miller and Paul Gentilozzi are looking at all these arcane-looking traces. With one of the biggest helpers for Johnny Miller, who's run a very successful program of his own for a number of years, trying to make that final step into perpetual winner and championship contender. The aspect of using it as a driver tool to help tune him up. How important is that for you, Johnny, to have Paul's data accessible and interpreted for you?
Oh, it's been fantastic. It's like running an extra session every time you go out. We learn a bunch about both the car, my driving style versus Paul's driving style, and we learn how to change setups and everything about the car and what to do. It's a fantastic tool.
Well, they've been downright hospitable, Paul, letting me in here. It's really nice of you to let me look at your dad and look over your shoulder like this.
Well, you know, Tom, after all those years of racing against you, you can see anything I got.
Except that final little bit of data that obviously he was looking to protect just a little bit. But, I mean, he's had a great run. He's now closed it up. He's made up almost a second on Tommy Archer. Now he's got to deal with some traffic. But Miller, second spot, and is definitely coming on. And he's opened it up over Bell by some 3 seconds.
Yeah, you have that yo-yo effect, the thing I alluded to with Tommy Archer's lap times. It's hard to know if he's just managing the gap or if he's really struggling inside that car. The last lap was about a second slower than Miller. He's responded this lap, and he was 2/10 quicker than Miller. So I guess there's our answer. Whether he's doing it one lap at a time because that's all he can muster, or if he's just kind of toying with him, it looks like Tommy Archer is still in control.
On board here with Miller as we watch, taking a look at our full field rundown there in the upper left. And Miller now has got to get by some of this lap traffic if he's going to have anything in the long run to take a shot at Tommy Archer, Bell third. But Paul Gentilozzi still there. What a remarkable turn of events with everything that happened to be up in fourth.
It's like Christine. Just when you think you count him out, or is it Jason, I guess, on Friday the 13th. Fastest lap that time around, Paul Gentilozzi. With all the trouble, he's still within shouting distance of Justin Bell for third place on a podium.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, it's about 4 seconds now, and it was much, much more than that just a few laps ago. We know Bell is in trouble with the rear tires. So Gentilozzi is coming. And you know what? There's a new policy with Trans Am, and it's the high-tech trailers owners points. And, somebody off there was really up straddling that curve. And right now, each car is entered as separate entries here. And the Rocket Sports team, both of their cars in the top 3. And, that is a big, big hit for number 45, Steve Pelkey, coming onto the front straight. And, Tommy, the right front corner gone.
Wow, I hope he hit the outside and not the pit entrance there.
Well, he clubbed her pretty good. See him inside, undoing the belts. That's always a good sign. And we're going to take you back we're just going to catch a bit of the replay here, Tommy. Let's watch for it as Pelkey in the K Manufacturing Mustang. See what happens here. Ooh.
He did hit oh my goodness. Wow. That's a big, I don't have any idea what happened. The car just turned hard right. He'd obviously been in that earlier wreck. Looks like the wheel still pointed straight ahead. I don't know if he broke a tie rod.
Yeah, or did he just lose it under hard acceleration and it just snapped and just speared the the barrier. Meanwhile, there's the good news. He's waiting, obviously. Looks to be okay. Talking to his crew, waiting for some officials. And we are full course yellow late in the going here at Portland. Welcome back to Portland for the Trans Am Series for the BF Goodrich Tires Cup. We are under a full course caution here in the beautiful Northwest. And the reason, of course, is the incident that we saw right before we went to break. There is the scene, and they are working on cleanup, of course. We're within 5 laps of the end, so they're going to be rushing like crazy to take care of this. But, Tommy, let's go back, take a look at this in very slow motion here.
It's really hard to tell. He's right up behind the back of the other car. If I had to guess, I think he probably broke the tires loose. You know, at this point, you're fighting it coming almost all the way out to the wall. Pretty solid front end, and Chris is with Steve Pelkey.
Here with Steve Pelkey down in pit lane. And Steve, what happened there?
Well, I was chasing Dan, my teammate. We were just having fun out there. I had a good run on him coming off for the last turn, and I caught him quicker than I thought I would because I wanted to get a good run to get him out of straightaway, but I caught him coming out of the turn. Had to turn the wheel from hitting him, and I was gassing at the same time, and the back end just came around, and that was it. You know, the tires are old, so you know, you can only expect so much out of them.
Are track conditions and tires becoming a big issue in the outcome of this race?
The track's great. It's a fun track. I hope they come back here next year.
Okay, I saw you wearing the Hans device there. Do you think that helped with that impact?
Well, I feel fine, so I'd hate to find out the hard way. I'm going to wear it from now on. No doubt about it.
Is this your first event with the Hans device?
No. We started wearing it after Mosport.
Good to see you're okay.
Well, good indeed. And, of course, there is Jim Matthews, by the way. He came by and was showing some smoke. Now we know why. I mean, he has absolutely shredded a left front tire. And, oh, Boris Sett is down in the pits. Cal?
Well, Boris is in. He's just going to go with one tire. That means he can maintain his track position once he gets back on course out of pit lane. So left rear was gone on, and Boris Sett should give him a bit more forward bite off the traction turns.
That, of course, will give him good bite out of a turn, but one new tire with 3 used ones, that can make the car a little bit, well, it could get a little nutty, actually. So he'll have to be careful. But one thing this does, the margins between Archer and Miller and Bell and Gentilozzi and Gelati and Simmel, they're gone, and we're just going to have a shootout to the finish in just a minute. Welcome back to Portland. You just saw Jim Matthews. He's made the stop. He has a new tire, but there's some debris on the track, so the report is one more lap of yellow, then 2 laps to the checker. It's going to get interesting, but we want to remind you, of course, that there's a lot of racing going on this weekend. Tomorrow, live Grand Am coverage from the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. It'll be the GT and American GT race Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That'll actually be off tape from the racing going on today. Then Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, live coverage of the Sports Racers, the Sports Racer Prototype 2, and the GTS machines coming at you, Grand Am style, from the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières in Quebec, Canada. We want to look forward to that. Now, Tommy, we know it now. It's going to be 2 laps, the green-white checker. All the margins are gone. 2-lap cars between Archer and Miller, but behind them, it's all position.
Well, when I was in this position years ago, the thing I would say with 2 laps, you were just asking for trouble. You've got everybody bunched up. Nobody has any tires left. The gap is gone. Obviously, Tommy Archer, if it's a phantom yellow, you're spitting mad. Here it was a legit yellow, but that doesn't change things. You go down to this festival where we've seen so much trouble on the start. Everybody wants to make up all the spots. Nobody has any tires left. It is usually when the green comes out, I have them called over the radio. I said, tell me when the wreck is on, because that is usually how it turns out. So I really feel for Tommy Archer. After everything he's been through, to have that gap go away, he's going to have to work for this.
I can't believe there were ever phantom yellows in this. By the way, Calvin, let's check in with you. How is Tommy doing behind the wheel?
Well, he's fine, but the team are really concerned. If you remember at Mosport, Greg, this car was very good on the long runs, but not so good on the short ones. So when the tires are cooler, this car does not perform as well. So with a 2-lap sprint here, not in his favor, they're really hoping that lap traffic will create a buffer between him and Miller.
Pace car is in, 2 laps to go, and right now Archer looking to make sure that those 2-lap cars stay out of his way. There goes Bell There goes Gentilozzi with Bell. Miller's going to get bottled up a little bit. Bell's going to get by both of those lap cars, Tommy, and at the turn into the festival, it's Archer, it's Bell. Gentilozzi's going to squeeze through. The top three, and Miller gets shuffled back, could not get around fixed. Miller's out of it.
What happened? He missed. He tried to time it, mistimed it, got on the wrong side of those lap cars. Justin Bell and Gentilozzi. Look at Gentilozzi working on Bell. This is a real dogfight.
And Bell, there is no reason for him to give this up. This is a battle for position. He may not be in the championship battle, but so what? He wants a second. It's better than a third, and he's not just going to give way to Gentilozzi, but we know he's wounded.
This is exactly what Archer was hoping for, because Miller had more speed than Bell. Got by because Bell was in trouble on his rear tires. Gentilozzi has been the quickest guy on most laps, so if he can get by, he could probably have a run. It's probably safe to say he'll get by Bell, but he's going to have lost his advantage. Now, Gentilozzi's on the right side coming up here. This is going to be a good one. I don't know if Gentilozzi can do it all the way on the outside.
And Miller's trying to get by Paul Fix, who continues to race these guys. And Miller and Fix almost get together. Miller up on a curve. And we've got somebody smoking in the back there big time, but we stay up front. The white flag coming out for Tommy Archer. Gentilozzi's now second. You can see, and Gelati! He gets nudged by somebody, and Gelati into the pit wall. Huge. Comes back across, gets to the outside. Fortunately, nobody was that close behind at the time, but now, Tommy, debris everywhere.
Yeah, obviously they're going to be telling Tommy Archer he has no choice. There's probably no clean line through there. He's got enough room to pick through it, but the radiator was probably exploded against the wall, so there's probably fluid all over the track. Full course yellow. Okay, they're going to freeze the positions here so the guys don't race back through that wreck. It's hard to argue with that call.
That's very hard to argue with that call. There's Gelati, but this is going to give Miller, it's taken away any opportunity, so Tommy Archer gets a little bit of a gift here, but it's at Lou's expense, and good to see Lou in the car moving. Another solid hit here, and boy, there's the debris field there on the front straight. We don't know exactly what happened. You would suspect he got helped a little bit.
I'm guessing it was probably whatever was happening in the background, where a car, I think someone had lost a tire and there was probably a big jam behind him, and somebody gets impatient or doesn't see what's going on and gets in the back of someone else.
Now Archer did not exactly back off, because I'm sure he got word it was on the front straight. So here comes Archer, maintained his margin, gets well wide of the debris, now cuts through that last little gap, and Tommy Archer brings the first Trans Am win to the Viper, the first Trans Am win for Dodge since 1993, and does it from pole, which, by the way, is going to be the 6th of 7 races won from pole this year. And Tommy Archer, what a phenomenal story, TK. The injuries he suffered in that testing crash, 4 broken ribs. I mean, he was hurting, and yet he comes through with a great win.
I'll tell you what, those are the sweet ones when you really have to work for it. Sometimes you reach deep down and you find something you didn't know was there. It'd be nice to be able to call that up on a moment's notice for every weekend, but look for more from this team.
Absolutely. Again, a great drive by Tommy Archer, but of course some concern about Lou Gelati. We understand he's standing by, and Chris Neville is there. Chris, how's he doing?
Yeah, I'm here with Lou Gelati, and he definitely is out of the car and okay. He looks a little pissed, I'll tell you that. He had a really good run going today. He was up in second. He was trying to catch Archer. Fell back a little bit. Lou, what happened there at the end of the race?
Well, at the end of the race, we got smashed out. I mean, I thought that was Boris in front of me. It was Mike Lewis, and he got loose coming out of that last corner on the restart, and it looks like he hit me, that yellow car right there. Matthews. I don't know. I'll tell you. It was Boris. Yeah. It was a good race. I don't know what to say. We had a great race going.
Mike Davis.
Mike Davis, yeah. It was a great race going, so I don't know. We're probably out of it for the rest of the season. I don't know. The car looks pretty well torn up. I only got a week to fix it. I don't think we can do it.
Well, Lou's definitely pretty disappointed with the outcome of this weekend. He did show speed, and we're going to go back upstairs.
He showed some great speed, and I know that this year for Lou, it's really been on a budget. He's had to be very careful financially, and this kind of damage, especially as you said, with just a couple-week turnaround, going to be a tough one for him to be able to come back from. But Tommy Archer, a big win for Justin Bell, his best career finish. He was 5th at Sears Point, 4th now for Bell here as he continues to move up, and for Dodge, it's the 5th different brand to win in 2001, so some great parity here. And Tommy Archer, 3rd career Trans Am win in his 43rd start. He took a lot of time off, of course. Archer has made his turn. He is into victory circle. getting some congratulations from some of the Sinjo Racing crew. Rest of the crew coming over, and boy, he's savoring this, and understandably so. But you've got to believe Calvin is going to be there, and Calvin, you've got to believe that he is incredibly sore right now. Boy, being very tentative, he's celebrating. But this is one hurting puppy at this stage, and maybe the most painful part of this entire day is going to be crawling out of that car at this point. Let's go down to Calvin.
Well, Tommy Archer pulls the helmet off. A great run out there this afternoon, and what a roller coaster. We'll start off on the first lap, Tommy. Well, before that, what happened on the formation lap with you and Paul touching wheels?
I don't know what he was thinking. I mean, I was holding a steady line, trying to stay out of the dirty stuff on the right, and I think he wanted to be over closer to protect from Boris, but maybe he forgot that the pole sitter controls the race. I mean, I was just holding a steady line. It was uncalled for, but hey, we came back with this Dodge Viper Sinjo Racing car, man. We just tore him up today. It was a great run. I didn't really realize my ribs were sore until 18 to go, and then I knew there was about 50 more bumps on this track that I knew about.
Tell us about the caution, the two-lap sprint at the end. Your car did not perform well in most sport on the short runs. Were you concerned there with 2 laps to go?
Not at all, not at all. We found out what the problem was at my sport, and we weren't going to slow down on the restart. The car was great all day. I just tried to pace myself and try not to hurt the tires any more than I had to. And the car just, I mean, these guys have worked their butt off. Sinjo is a great team, and Joe and Cindy to let me have the chance to drive this Blue Bomb is a great thing.
Awesome job today, Tommy.
Thank you.
The Blue Bomb. Boy, what a great job there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Paul Gentilozzi, with everything he went through today, ends up second. We'll visit with Paul, find out his side of the story.
Welcome back to Victory Circle here at Portland International. I'm here with Paul Gentilozzi. Paul finished second. This was a one-stop race. How many times were you in pit lane?
I think I stopped 3 times. Once to get my fuel, once to get the grass out of the grill, and then a mystery stop. I'm not sure what that was for. I guess that was so somebody else could win. It was a lot of fun anyway.
Hey, that was a great run you had, and I'm sure you're pretty happy with second for the points.
Well, beating Brian is what counts. And fortunately, the last lap, he spun. I don't know what happened. So we gained some points, and that's what we're here for.
Good run.
Thanks a lot, Rick.
Great run indeed for Paul Gentilozzi. When we come back, we'll visit for a moment with Johnny Miller. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to Portland.
Speed Vision's coverage of the Trans Am Series for the BF Goodrich Cup has been presented by BF Goodrich Tires. Take control. And brought to you by Prudential Financial, a rock-solid leader in financial services. Choose Prudential Financial to help you grow and protect your wealth.
Welcome back to Portland, where the 7th round of the championship has concluded, and we're going to take a look at what our provisional results. You see under review, Archer Gentilozzi, there's the area of contention. Johnny Miller, there's a possibility he passed Justin Bell under yellow. That is being reviewed. Boris Said in 5th, Simo in 6th, Davis Miller, Dan Miller, and Leighton Reese. The big story there, really, in terms of the championship, is Gentilozzi, after everything that happened to him, getting back into 2nd, and look what it does. He was 14 points up coming in. With everything that happened to him, he expands his point lead over Johnny Miller, who now gets by Simo back into 2nd spot. So an unbelievable unfolding of events for Paul Gentilozzi. Quickly, Tommy, you're back in Trans Am. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know. That one wore me out. Congratulations to the Sinjo group as a brand new team. But I think, I don't know if my ticker can take this. That felt like a 500-miler to me. I might have to go right back into retirement.
Okay, well, there you go. Remember to check out everything racing-wise on the web. You can do it at speedvision.com. By the way, Dorsey Schrader racing this weekend in Trois-Rivières. Great to have Tommy Kendall with us. We want to remind you the next race for Trans Am coming up from Road America for TK, for Calvin Fish, and for Chris Neville. I'm Greg Creamer. Thanks so much for joining us here at Portland. We'll be coming at you from Road America next on Speed Vision. Take care, everybody.